Ohio State is preparing for Michigan with two massive question marks at receiver. The status of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate will define how Ryan Day attacks this year's edition of the game.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. During today's show, we will discuss Julian Sayin's role for Ohio State to beat Michigan this weekend, as well as how injuries impact this year's edition of the game. But before we dive into any of that, on a Monday when it's hate week, I got to bring in my guy, Mo Murphy, the Coach Mo Murphy of the Coach Mo Murphy podcast. He has been busy with basketball, and we're both hyped up for this game. But, Mo, this year's edition of Ohio State's battle with Michigan is a little bit different. It's one of the oddest ones in Ryan Day's tenure as Ohio State's head coach, where you might go into this game without your two best weapons on offense. Sayin's a weapon, don't get me wrong, but Sayin's a massive weapon, and it's a bigger weapon when Jeremiah Smith's on one side and Carnell Tate's on the other. Neither one of us know their injury status as far as if they're going to play or if their injuries will have them not be able to play until the college football playoff. We are not sure. But for this game specifically, I think we both can agree that if these guys are on the field, Ohio State's going to win big, really big.
Yeah, that's always the safe assumption, and that's obviously operating under the assumption that if these guys are on the field, they are ready to go, and Ryan Day is going to use them in the way that he needs to use both of his receivers in order to beat Michigan. We talked before the show. We talked time and time again, and I think a lot of people are on the side this year. We got to put our pride to the side. We can't sit here and try and put the gloves on and be in a dogfight with Michigan in the trenches and prove who's the tougher. Sometimes you just got playmakers. You got to put the ball in their hands. And so hopefully, I guess the question is, are we going to be able to do that? Like, is Carnell Tate, is Jeremiah Smith going to play? Because it didn't look, there's a couple people who got a couple snapshots of Jeremiah Smith on the sideline. And to me, just me, I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I don't know, but I had plenty of injuries and multiple surgeries. So I do know what it looks like when you compromise. That did not look like a player that if that was a game of real significance, like on Saturday, that he would have been able to play.
You're correct. No, I'm right there with you. I saw the video a couple weeks ago when he was walking in the tunnel and he looked like he was moving like a man that was in some pain. And then the videos that went around during senior day, he looked like he was in some pain, still a lot of pain. And so maybe you could use him as a decoy, but I don't even know if it's like remember T.O. when he was in the Super Bowl and he played hurt and he still had a monster game.
Didn't he play with a broken leg?
Yes.
Like he played with a broken leg.
I don't think Jeremiah Smith nor Carnell Tate have a broken leg, but that just goes to show like what a guy that's a superstar can do at receiver while he is hurt. And that was at the Super Bowl, and the Eagles actually almost won that one. I don't know if Jeremiah Smith right now, and I'm with you, if that was a game of importance on Saturday, he may have tried to give it a go, but man, it would have been a tough go. It would have been very, very difficult for him to go out there and move as freely as he wants to. Carnell Tate's injury seems like it's a little bit different. There's been less visuals of him moving around. There's been less pictures of his face. You sent a text. I didn't think that was actually going to be something that was going to be a reality of what you said in that text about maybe he could be out for the year. I know that there have been people that have said that, even Ryan Day, that these aren't long-term injuries. I don't know, man. I could easily see one of these guys playing against Michigan and the other one sitting out. I'm not sure which one I'm going to say. I don't know. Tate could play. Smith could sit out. Smith could play. Tate could sit out. I would not be shocked by either one because these injuries feel a little bit different than, homie, he has a calf strain, so we're going to sit him out to just try to let him rest up 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more with you on like the Carnell Tate. I said a million times, like it reminds me of when Jackson Smith and Jigba got hurt. Now, granted, his process of him being hurt and him making the business decision to not finish out the season started with him being hurt at the very beginning of the season, where Carnell Tate, this is the end. But, and I get why, I don't want to point out like why Carnell Tate could afford not to play, because at the end of the day, like as an Ohio State fan and as Ohio State fans that listen and watch this show, they don't really care about, Ohio State fans don't necessarily care about the NFL. They don't care what you go on to do at the NFL. They care about what you're going to do for the university. So what they don't care about is if Carnell Tate is making a business decision with this injury by basically possibly not playing for the rest of the year, because it could cost him millions in the NFL, especially now that these athletes are getting paid. But it reminds me of that situation with Jackson Smith and Jigba, because we knew, JSN had hurt his hamstring. But they played it like it wasn't that serious. It wasn't that serious. He sat out 2 to 3 weeks, played against Purdue, ran 2 crisp routes, caught a pass on the sideline, and we never saw him again for the rest of the year. And that was a national championship, caliber offense, again, with C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. and JSN. This is very similar. The only difference is we have a defense that we can lean on to win the championship, but I think this offense still it's very dependent on Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. This illusion or this delusion that we've lived in all year as Ohio State fans, that we basically are saying we've kind of managed our way throughout the season offensively for this game to unleash everything on this game for Ryan Day to make a statement by beating Michigan. Especially, it will be a perfect statement going on the road to beat Michigan when they're talking about how much of a cupcake schedule we have, and you'll be playing a top 15 team here, come Saturday. But it just, it's tough for me to see that both of them would play on Saturday and be anything close to 100%, to where the whole what we thought was leading up to this game, the process of that we're going to be able to unleash them and they both can go for 100 plus yards and 2 touchdowns apiece and we could put up 40 points. I'm not sure that that's even a realistic outcome for this game if either one of them are out.
And the thought when these guys are hurt, it's the same thought with any team. You're a coach, Mo. If somebody's hurt, it's the next man up. Somebody else has to fill in that role and provide something productive for the team. We're still trying to figure out who the third best receiver is on the team, or maybe the third, fourth, and fifth. Maybe you guys are believers that Brandon Ennis is clearly the third best receiver. Okay, I won't try to push you away from that right now. Maybe down the road I might. But Quincy Porter, Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, nobody is seeing them play significant playing time against another team's starters to let Ohio State know, oh, these guys can do X, Y, and Z, because we've seen it on a Saturday in the fall. Quincy Porter didn't even play last week, and that would have been a great time to see him get out there and get some valuable snaps against Rutgers defense. That uncertainty might not make Ohio State fans feel well when your 2 best receivers are out and you have no idea what you have on the outside if those guys don't play.
Yeah, 100%. And that uncertainty is for the simple fact, if none of those guys can play and we are very nervous, if we're nervous and let's say the head coach isn't sure of the ability of these guys in this type of game, then we know what the other result of how this game is going to go. And that's going to be Ohio State trying to ground and pound and basically try and beat up Michigan in the trenches. And I don't know about everybody else, but to me, that's been the reason why we haven't been able to beat Michigan, is because we just haven't went in there and said, you know what? It's not about beating you up physically. Y'all can't match us athlete for athlete. That's what we're going to take pride in. And you might give us a good war in the trenches and you might get a lot of positive yards running the ball, but what you can't do is guard us from the outside in. We're not going to win this game from the inside out. I think Michigan takes pride on being able to beat teams from the inside out and preventing you from even, if you play their game, it's going to be tough to beat Michigan on the road at Ann Arbor. And so with these guys, I don't know what the weather is going to look like, because that's always the other factor in this scenario. To me, before the injuries, the only thing was the weather. If it's snowing, then I'm a little nervous about our game plan. But injuries being a part of that now is if it's snowing and we're injured, there's not really a guy that I'm looking at that I think could give us 100 yards except our tight end, Max Clare. And maybe that's his type of game, but maybe he has this huge game and has another 100-yard game and two touchdowns on this Saturday against, Michigan. But there's nobody I can point to that within confidence. If there was Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, I could point and be like, that's the guy that's going to be able to get it done on the outside against these Michigan corners.
There's a guy on Michigan that is hurt that Mo and I have not talked about yet, but we'll dive into how Justice Haynes' injury impacts the game as well. That's coming at you after the break. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. I recently upgraded the couch in our living room from Wayfair, and it completely transformed the room. I couldn't believe how fast everything shipped just in time for the holidays. Browsing through their site, it's easy to find pieces that actually fit my style. Nothing generic, just quality designs that feel personal. Don't miss out on Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAR.com. Sale ends December 7th. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And Mo, anytime Ohio State's going to look at injuries in this game, it's always going to be Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Those are the two best injured players in this game. Justice Haynes is really good, a future NFL running back that, unless something miraculous happens, the Wolverines will not be with their #1 running back in this game, which almost leans into why Ohio State's defense should have another monster game this weekend. If you go into a game either with a backup quarterback or the opponent has a backup running back, Ohio State's defense is going to eat them alive because it's just how good they are. The guys up front, the linebackers, the secondary, there really isn't a weakness. And I think in this game, everybody can look at Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Let's not forget, Ohio State's defense is going up against a second and third string running back at Michigan that have also been banged up late in the season. That should be a recipe for Ohio State's defense to have a lot of success.
100%, Jay. And especially when you think about it, like, what's a quarterback's best friend? What's going to open up things for a quarterback is the run game. And what Ohio State can do is, this is arguably the best defense in the country. And this is the best defense in the country coming into their house, I understand, against a true freshman quarterback, though. Mm-hmm. So at the end, as good as Bryce Young has the possibility to be, there's nothing that there's not a performance this year that Bryce Underwood. There's not a performance that Bryce Underwood has had this year where I look and be like, if you take away their run game, that guy can beat this Ohio State defense. And so now to dampen their run game with Justice Haynes not being able to play, and this Ohio State defense showing time and time again that they're going to pounce on every weakness that you have on the offensive side, I think having a true freshman and trying to put the ball in his hands to win this game, Ohio State from the outside, the corners, the safeties, the linebackers, the D-line, they have everything that you don't want to have to see as a true freshman quarterback. And then you telling me the one thing that is going to open up any type of possibility of you feeling comfortable in the pocket is a run game that's probably not going to be there, or is going to be real damper because Justice Haynes isn't playing. That does favor tremendously in Ohio State's hands because of how good they are defensively.
Another thing that's in Ohio State's favor defensively is Matt Patricia's NFL experience and his ability to teach these 18 to 22-year-old young men NFL language and terminology that they could quickly use on the field. Where last year, Mo, there were times you saw Ohio State's defense, and they were struggling to get lined up quickly. If it was a tempo team they're going up against, they were trying to communicate, and they weren't all on the same page. Where this year, you can try tempo. They don't have to look around to communicate. The linebackers and Caleb Downs and the safeties are doing a great job of making sure everybody's on the same page. And I think Matt Patricia, as I said, I think I said this last week, he is working on this game plan since he got to Ohio State. Now, it's different because you didn't have college film on Bryce Underwood, so you can't really go, I got 2 years of film on the guy to work on. Mm-hmm. But he's had 11 games to work on film and a game plan for this matchup this weekend. You add in Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Keanu Jackson Jr., Caden Curry, the other dogs in the defense. I think Patricia's going to whip up potentially one of his best game plans all season, and that goes into what he did against Arch Manning in Texas. This game plan this weekend is going to have Bryce Underwood so confused that he's not going to know what he is saying when he's on the field.
Yeah, and saying that you don't think A possibility that I don't know, I haven't heard too many people really look at is you don't think maybe we're going to be able to not rush Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and maybe it's not the number one priority for Ryan Day to have them on the field this Saturday because of his trust in what Matt Patricia will be able to do for the defense in order to win this game. And I mean, like you said, we held Texas to 7 points. Now, I know that was the first game of the season. If we played Texas again, would we beat them? 100%. Do we hold them to 7 points? Maybe not, but do they put on an offensive masterclass? No, because nobody has done that up to this point in the season. And so Bryce Underwood is just, he's not the quarterback I would fear right now at this point in his career. Now, his junior year, when maybe he's ready to be a top 5 NFL pick, like we're having a different conversation about Bryce Underwood's impact on this game. But to me, his impact on this game this year is going to be very minimal in my eyes because of how good Matt Patricia is and has been. Like, there's nothing on our defensive side where you're looking at like, if they play, there's no game where you're like, if they play defense like that, Michigan's going to be able to get them. But there's also on the other side too, goes into our hand. To me, there's not really one game where you look at if Bryce Underwood is able to put that performance together against that Ohio State defense, then he will end up winning them the game and they'll be able to, upset Ohio State's perfect season. So I also think the confidence in Matt Patricia and this defense could also be why Ohio State is so willing to sit a Carnell Tate for a length of time, sit a Jeremiah Smith for a length of time, or even to allow this to be a possible conversation, like to allow this to even be a topic of conversation over the next week instead of shutting down the rumors and saying they're playing or they're not playing. I just think the confidence in this defense says a lot about how we're handling the situation.
What's your confidence in the offensive line this week?
On a scale of 1 to 10, like 7.
Okay.
I mean, they've been playing pretty well. Julian Sayin hasn't been under duress for most of, if not all year. I mean, sure, you're going to give up a sack or two here or there. You're going to give up a play to an opponent that you shouldn't have. Just, it happens. They're young men, young humans. But as there's nothing at the offensive line, you might have paid attention a little more at the trenches than me as far as seeing a certain game or a certain few drives that were put together in a row that you're like, yeah, that's not what I want to see from my offensive line in this situation. But I haven't really seen them get pushed back too many times. I haven't seen these runs turn into negative runs too many times. There's not too many tackle for losses allowed, not too many sacks allowed. So I'm fairly confident, and I don't think this Michigan defensive line is the best D line we've seen all year either. Like, so they're not this monstrous defensive line that they've been in the past. That's another thing. Like, this Michigan, they don't have 2 to 3 first round or future first round picks on this defensive line this year. So with that being said, and this being above average to borderline pretty darn good offensive line, I'm comp 7. Now, if we start turning this into how much tougher are they than the Michigan trenches, and we end up, I think we could lose that battle just because that's a mental thing at this point. Like, they've been beat up, but and plus a lot of our O-line hasn't really played in this game either. So they're not gonna have that mental of like, this been the team that's been physically beating us up in these trenches. None of them have really played based on that experience. So I'm not too concerned. I'm pretty confident in our offensive line.
And I've been very critical of the O-line a lot of the year. But as I think about it, Mo, I'm being critical and they're blowing everybody out. Like, I'm a very critical analyst, and that's my job. Like, I'm supposed to be nitpick Ohio State standard is super high, so I have to provide my analysts to match their standard. The nitpicking part that I find when I watch their games, Bo Jackson's had how many 100-yard games in the past 5 or 6 weeks? You got Max Clare, who's able to do some amazing things because Julian Sayin's able to stay upright when he has 2 of his best receivers that aren't on the field. He throws to a tight end who had like 7 catches for over 100 yards. And so even like it's not a perfect offensive line, but man, they find a way to put up 40 points a week in their sleep. And so there may be question marks about players or a player, but I think as a collective unit, this 5 has gotten the job done every single week. And I know Michigan's going to try to do some things that are going to trip them up, but they've been able to answer any test every single Saturday, and I have no doubts that they'll pass another one this week.
Yeah, like I agree with you 100% because, like I said, like there might be certain plays and like if this, I think with watching Ohio State this year, I think what it is, it's a lot of like, yeah, you're playing Rutgers or you're playing Minnesota, but when you're watching them, you're like, man, he gave up that D line. Look how he beat him. The D lineman didn't make a play, but if that was Oklahoma's defense, that guy finishes and makes a sack. If that was Alabama in the middle of December or January, and so that's what people tend to do with watching Ohio State is you're going to look for the mistakes and then transfer it and say that mistake is going to cost you in a game in the playoffs, late in the playoffs or whatever it may be. And it'd be like, but maybe like one, they don't give up that play, but they know this is a team where I can afford to do some things. I can afford to make a mistake here. I can afford to not give maximum effort because we're just so much better than them. But when it, comes down time to buckle up, I won't make that mistake. Or it's just that mistake could happen in the same instance in the Alabama game, and that same mistake could just not matter. Mistakes are made on every play by somebody. That's how an offense can get positive yards and the defense gives up yards, and that's how defense can make the offense go backwards and the offense go into negatives because somebody makes a mistake every play. But we just point out so much. We're so critical of them because everything is leading to Big Ten championship, national championship, beating Michigan, being undefeated. And so everything, we're chasing perfection. And we haven't been knocked off of that pedestal yet to think that perfection is a reality of being the undefeated national champions. So we're just so critical and compare it to, we think Rutgers, we got to approach Rutgers like we approach Alabama. We got to play. So we approach that as fans and expect the players to do that same time. And then it'll be a play that you point out in the middle of the third quarter when we up 35-70. You'd be like, but if we do that in the middle of the third quarter and it's 35-31, we're going to lose that game. He ain't going to, maybe he don't get lackadaisical though if it's 35-31 and he's all locked into one of those type of games. So I'm pretty confident in our offensive line. I'm confident in really everything Ohio State's put together this year so far.
I'm also very confident in Julian Sayin's ability to lead Ohio State to victory this weekend. I will tell you why after the break. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Guys, we're in the beginning of rivalry week in college football, and I'm going to love every second of it. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I put up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Mo, something tells me that people that are watching this show or listening to it on a Monday, they have a confidence in Julian Sayin that is similar to what we have. Julian Sayin all year has showed his poise, his precision, and his ability to run the Ohio State offense is at an elite level. Doesn't matter what team they're playing or the circumstance in the game, he is always ahead of what the other team is doing, and he is not afraid to look guys in the eye and say, you got to do that better next time, or let's keep going, follow me, while I'll lead you to the promised land. And then in this week, once again, this past weekend, Ohio State didn't have their two best receivers. They beat Rutgers 42-9. I'm not going to sit up here and say that Ohio State's going to put up 40 points this weekend, or they're going to hold Michigan to single digits. I'm not going to go that far, but I will say this. I do believe everybody can believe in Julian Sayin's ability to run Ohio State's offense at an all-time level. And if you believe in the Heisman moment, it's coming this weekend, because he's a guy that is going to look at this game and say, I can win the Heisman Trophy, and if I need a Heisman moment to do so, that's coming in just a few days.
Yeah, I that's where, everybody was talking about a Heisman moment. I think this is a possibility. I know Ohio State being number one and playing a team that's not going to be in the top 10 is like, well, how can you have a Heisman moment? But what this is this is Julian Sayin leading the troops on the road to get a monkey off of Ryan Day's back and the program's back. We're going on the road to win in Ann Arbor. And if it's based on me having an amazing performance, like people are going to remember that. Like the Ohio State beating Michigan, I really think in the national scheme of things, they will get a lot of credit for winning this game, especially if they win. No matter how they win, they will get a lot of credit for winning this game from the national media and things like that because they understand like this has been Ohio State's kryptonite. Even with Ohio State winning a national championship, they've talked more about this game this Saturday than Ohio State after they talked about Ohio State winning a national championship because they know the importance of this game, the importance of that game on that Saturday. Like now, just as how important this game is to the schedule of college football on rivalry week, Jay. We now have half of the rivalries and ranked teams are playing on Friday now, which is a thing I've never seen this many Friday games. Takes the air out of Saturday and puts all the juice into this game at 12 p.m. kickoff. Every Ohio State, Michigan, as if it's not already always the premier game to watch at 12 p.m. on a Saturday on rivalry week. You've juiced it up for the schedule that at this time slot, no other game is going to have the implications. No other game is going to matter in the way that it does. And so all eyes are going to be on Julian Sayin. In the college football world, they're very, as much as SEC people are all SEC and Big Ten people are arguing over Big Ten right now, they are very aware of every other team's failures. And so everybody knows Ohio State has not been able to climb the mountaintop and get to the Big Ten championship and things like that because Michigan has stood in its way and they failed that test. So they're going to get a lot of credit for this win. And I think if Julian Sayin has an amazing performance, whatever that may be, it's got to be at least 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. If we're talking about a Heisman moment, hopefully it's not about a game-winning drive and it's just about how he led the offense dominantly over Michigan in Ann Arbor and get that respect back in this rivalry. That could be his Heisman moment, but he will get a lot of credit if he has an amazing performance, even if it's Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate play and everything's been a facade and they're damn near 100% and they're ready to go and it's flying up and down the field to those two alone and he's throwing for 350, 400 yards and multiple touchdowns. He will have an opportunity to have his Heisman moment. I think in the national media relevance, if he has a great, almost perfect game in the way he's been playing, but does it against Michigan and gets this win, I think it's going to get him a lot of credit, in the media's eyes for the Heisman.
As it should, because there's been the guys over the past few years, CJ Stroud specifically, being a guy that should have won the Heisman Trophy, but he didn't win the Heisman. But he didn't win the Heisman because he didn't beat Michigan. Like he had games where you could tell that Stroud wasn't able to get over the hump, and there were some things that he couldn't do. His name got moved from the Heisman race, and literally Aiden Hutchinson moved up in this game. This is a game where legends are made. We were talking about Chris Olave before the show. I remember his freshman year, him blocking that punt. And that's something I think about right now. He's in the NFL. He's been in the NFL for a few years doing his thing. But we look back at these moments, and this is where legends are made, man. And if you do have both your top receivers, or if you don't have them at all, or you only have one of them, figure it out. I know it's kind of harsh to say, but I don't care. You got to figure it out. You got to roll to Ann Arbor and figure out how to win. And this isn't a game where I'm going to be saying you have to blow them out. I don't care about that. I don't really care about the spread. I don't care about none of that stuff.
No, you got to win.
Find a way to win. And that's been Ryan Day's motto all season. Just win. He is not trying to go for style points. He isn't trying to make sure the defense doesn't allow touchdowns. He is just saying find a way to win. Now, in the process, it has been a lot of lopsided games, and it's been showing out where Ohio State's offense is better than everybody else, and Ohio State's defense is suffocating everybody else on the other side of the ball. But Ryan Day's not preaching, oh, we got to blow everybody out. We got to score 60 and hold them to 5. No, He is saying just win. And I hope for Ryan Day's sake, mentally for him specifically, that he keeps that same thought process this week. Because if Ryan Day goes into this and he tries to talk about how tough we are, how physical things are, then he's deviating from the things that have got him to this point to be perfect, to have an unblemished record, just win. And for saying the numbers are going to come, if you just do your job while making sure Ohio State does what is needed to win this game.
Yeah, my thing is call the plays that need to be called in order for Julian Sayin to be as successful as possible. Put the ball in his hands to win this game. Like it's almost that simple. Like we've tried to do this. We got punched in the mouth by Michigan the first time, and ever since then we've tried to prove that we're tougher. And that's what we want to base everything off of in this rivalry so far. Is ever since they got us in the Jim Harbaugh era, because he had one tough team roll through here. Now we're trying to prove that we're tougher and not just approaching this game like it's not about the opponent on the other side. It's about what we do. And what we do is going to get the job done and win. And I'm not worried about what the other side is doing. And it seems like in this Michigan game that has been Ryan Day's kryptonite is I think he's worried about what people think after beating Michigan. He's worried about, well, if they don't beat them up physically, but they beat them with their finesse, like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do, but you still couldn't hang with us in the trenches. Like, it doesn't matter. Let people talk up. Get the win and let Michigan fans talk up. Because right now, even with Ohio State being 11-0, when Michigan, there's a scenario where if they were to win this game, that they could play in the Big Ten championship. They would need a lot of things to shake their way, but there is a scenario where Michigan's not all the way dead. So therefore, like in their mind, though, they're not talking up. They talking down on us. Because they're like, it doesn't matter how good you guys are. We've beat those teams. Those teams we went into, we went into Columbus last year and beat that team that won the national championship. So we don't care how good y'all are. We don't care what the rest of our season looks like. We're here to beat y'all. That is our sole goal. This game is a playoff game before the playoffs. This game is a Big Ten championship game before the Big Ten championship. And Ohio State has to treat it like that and just win. And if that calls for Julian Sayin put the ball in his hands and having your playmakers fly around and go athlete for athlete, then do it. If it calls for us being able to run the ball and the opportunities are there and we're able to take advantage of it and just we happen to be tougher than Michigan this year in the trenches, cool. But to me, it's put the ball in your quarterback's hands and allow him to go win the game. Because when you finally did it last year with Will Howard and allowed Will Howard, to relax and play his game offensively, he went and won your national championship.
Yeah, he did.
When you tried to prevent him from playing his game and just let's beat them up physically and this, that, and the other. I mean, he went in the shoot. When you put the ball in his hands early, he went in the shootout. You lost by 1 to Oregon. Maybe that's what scared you into really trusting Will Howard fully with this offense and seeing what it could do. But once you went into the playoffs after trying to out-tough Michigan and losing that battle, once you went into the playoffs and went back to the recipe that was going to be to us have the offense the most successful, and that was put the ball in your quarterback's hands. He can make plays on with his legs and all that. That's what you're supposed to do. So I think that's what we got to do with Julian Sayin and let him have his Heisman moment.
What's your score prediction for the game on Saturday?
Now, yeah, we finally got here. So my score prediction for the game Saturday, what I want it to be and what I think it'll be is two different things. I think Ohio State wins 24-13. I think they beat Michigan 24-13. I know 13 points is kind of a lot for this Ohio State defense to give up. And how is Michigan going to score 13? Just this type of team, this type of game, I think it's one of those ways. And I just don't know. If you tell me Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are playing, I'd predict us for more points. But right now, today, I'm going Ohio State 24, Michigan 13. Okay. Low scoring, just win. Like you said, no style points. We just got to come out here 12-0. That's it. And I think if we do that and approach it that way, we put up 24 and Michigan score 24-7 and Michigan scores late when it doesn't matter. It's not a competitive 24-13. It's just when that clock hits 0, 24-13.
He is Mo Murphy, the host of the Coach Mo Murphy podcast. And you can follow him on Twitter at Coach Mo Murphy. You can follow me on the same platform at JSteven07. You can also find Locked on Buckeyes on any social media platform, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of those all the time, giving you the Buckeye fuel that you need to get through the day to get to the game on Saturday. And I hope you guys are gearing up for Thanksgiving with the family, just like you're gearing up for the game on Saturday. And let us know what your score prediction is for the game Saturday in the comments on this video.